Our discussion items for this evening on the agenda is the City Council possible action on 2010-2011 appropriation. Just a little bit of background before we engage in the discussion. This relates to action that the board passed in June. At our first meeting in June, the board passed administrative raises for several individuals. At our second meeting in June, those raises were upheld. We had a re-look at those. So our second meeting in June, the base effect of that was to confirm what we did in the beginning of June. Following our June activity, the City Council had a meeting in July. And at that meeting, they established an ad hoc committee to review the actions of the board in June. That committee met in August. I believe it was the 25th of August. And the ad hoc report is at your place. That was recently published in advance of the September City Council meeting. And at that meeting, there was a motion that was passed to reserve $35,300 out of our current year appropriation. Action is expected to take place at the City Council meeting this Thursday. It is on the agenda. And so those are the actions that have taken place so far. I'd like to give the floor to Mayor Boughton if you wish to add. But I think those are the facts as we see them here today. But I would defer to you if you'd like to make a comment.
Yeah, sure. And I, first of all, thanks. It's good to see everybody. And I was not initially able to attend tonight. I had a little bit of a change of schedule, so I wanted to swing by. So if you got an email saying that, ignore the email. Let me just kind of give you a little bit of background why the council took the action and took and what I anticipate happening. Frankly, why the rationale wasn't. And let me just start by saying this is not a reflection on the board's authority, ability, statutory authority to determine how best it wants its money spent and where it wants to allocate its resources. Everybody understands that, everybody gets that on the City Council. So the actions taken Thursday night, anticipate the probability, the high probability that it won't make a bit of difference in terms of the actions taken by the board previously this summer as it related to salary and benefit increases. But here's where the City Council is coming from, and frankly where I'm coming from. One is that with all due respect to all of the individuals that receive salary increases, I'm not suggesting they're not worth it or they're not doing a good job. They are. I know all of them personally and individually over the years and have gotten to be supporters of the work that they do. But the issue comes down to, first off, an issue of precedence. If you give raises to your non-union folks, discretionary raises, not required by any contractual obligation, you then obligate the council and myself to give raises to my non-union folks. Now, my group is bigger than your group. So while people say, well, 30,000, 35,000, whatever the number is, doesn't seem like a lot of money, it's not. But when you pack that in and compare that to my group, now I've got to come up with a couple $100,000 for raises on my side because my cabinet hasn't had a raise in 18 months. So there's that issue of precedence in terms of equity. Is it fair to say to one group you don't get a raise and another group you do? And at some point, somewhere, somebody's got to say, enough. We frankly can't afford raises in an era when we're laying off employees, we don't have textbooks, when a whole host of other challenges we have in the district, we miraculously come up with money for raises. So I have an issue with equity, and it's a valid one for my staff. So your $35,000 expenditure here turns into a much larger expenditure on the other side of the ledger, just so we're clear about it. The second piece of this is negotiations. Without divulging strategy and who wants what and how much we're going to spend where, all of us are going into negotiations with our unions. I know teachers are up. I think administrators may be up.
Yeah, they're both
on one year. Okay, so that's two collective bargaining units, and I don't know about your custodians, and I think your custodians are wrapped up and whatever, but you've got at least 2 a year. I've got 6 on my side. First thing they ask is when we go into negotiations is they go back and look at what did the administrators get? And that becomes baseline for them. So again, your $35,000, that was $180,000. Now it becomes a $2 million raise because you can't say no to teachers, you can't say no to clerical staff, to firefighters and police officers if you couldn't say no to the administrators who are right in front of you. So the problem is that it becomes a ever-expanding universe of increasing salary cost and benefit cost going forward. So that's really the two reasons I would say that the council is concerned. Now, I started this conversation by saying that, look, it's clear that the council understands that they can't tell you what to do and how to spend your money. That's up to you. The only thing they can do is appropriate money. Obviously, we have a legal opinion that says we can take the action, the council can take the action it feels it can take. And you still can go give the raises. That's up to you. But we don't have to fund them. And that's simply where we're at right now. So with that, I know there's discussion.
Thank you, Mayor Bowden, and thank you for your attendance. We appreciate your input.
Anything for you?
Before we continue the discussion, I just wanted to bring across some points. They're really two separate issues, and one of them is whether the council really can do this. But I don't believe we even need to get to that issue because the raises or the increases themselves, I think the board's rationale behind that has a very solid foundation in and of itself. I think I just wanted to address some of the points that were brought up in the ad hoc report that really failed to reflect some of the board's rationale in this decision. And I really wanted to express those concerns because I think it's important. Whether we're justifying ourselves to the city council, the public, any constituent, I don't think it matters one way or the other whether it's who it is. But I feel, though, any decision that we make needs to be justified to the public at large. But one of the main points that has been brought up is the fact of the affordability, the fact that we're in an era where we're cutting positions, et cetera, and there's money for raises. These dollars do not exist in a vacuum. As an example, the largest single item of this amount refers to a stipend that we're paying our HR director for legal services. And this is something that the board debated quite a lot over the past month or two as to whether this was appropriate or not. Before the board considered this for approval, we had sent our finance director back to do an analysis of what our current legal expenses have been, given our use of our very expensive outside attorney, to see exactly what we could save if we were to do more of this work in-house. And the report that came back to the board was roughly about a $70,000 savings each year on legal fees if we were to have our inside HR director do this work for us, which in the past had not been done. We used to rely very heavily on Tom Mooney and his staff for every legal question that came up, every negotiation, every session, etc. And the board considered that very carefully, and it took the better part of a year for us to be in agreement that that's what we should do. This idea first came up in the fall last year, and in my opinion, we really weren't convinced until we had a year's worth of experience to say, look, Mr. Bray, our prior HR director, who was not paid for that, but again, we wanted to see whether the work could be done, and if it could be done, could it be done effectively? And if it could be done effectively, could it be done saving money? And I believe the last year of experience showed us that was indeed the case. And that's a cost benefit that was pretty easy for us to contemplate. Paying $15,000 and in return about $70,000 on average, and that'll vary year to year. But I think that's a win for the district. In terms of the other raises for the other individuals, and again, those raises were considered as a group and not individually. But if you look at the budget lines that consist of these people, directors, supervisors, assistant superintendent, superintendent, what the board has been able to do, not just in this past budget year, but going back a year before when we reorganized, is that we've been able to significantly reduce the FTEs at those levels. And by doing so, again, part of that is piling work on the remaining people, but we've actually been able to save significant amounts of cost at the highest levels of salary in the district. One of the analyses I had Mr. Longo do recently is take a look at those 5 budget lines over the past 4 years since Dr. Pasquarello took office. And what you'll find is that those salary lines are down about $1 million since we started in 06. And that's taking into account all the raises that we've incurred for principals and administrators, etc. Although there hasn't been much of that recently. But a lot of that reduction has taken place in the last year or two as a result of reorganizations, as a result of retirements, not filling positions, and redistributing the work to the remaining staff. One example of that, Mrs. Rice, our IT director, retired at the end of last year. Dr. Glass is assuming that directly, and so the entire IT department reports to Dr. Glass. Is that the best operational decision? Probably not. But again, the times that we're in now require us to find money in as many crannies as we can so that we can limit the reductions that we have across the district. That's one example, and there are several others of cases where we're trying to find money in different places, and if we can give a nominal amount of money to someone to take on a significant amount of extra work, I think that's a big part of the board's thinking in our most recent deliberations. I probably don't want to go down the path of the other justification, whether the council may or may not, if they're not able to do it, but I would entertain discussions from the rest of the board on that. So that's the end of my comments. Does the rest of the board have a comment?
Right here.
Mr. Tarasano.
Okay, I don't agree with you on this one as far as the comments. I see the city council and the mayor usurping the responsibility and powers that the state give us. I know it's a legal matter, and I just underlined something in this. Attorney Hinter advised that the court could be petitioned by the Board of Ed to render a decision on this matter. I asked our Human Resources Director and if our attorney Tom Mooney had been asked about the legality of this, the fact that were they usurping, because I'm not a lawyer. May I get my words in, Mr. Mayor? You know, I'm not even sure you have even bound to be here at this point.
Well, I'm an ex-officio member of the board.
Okay.
And we just said we weren't going to call Tom Mooney for any advice, and now you got to call in and get advice.
No. I said, and then I asked, may I know? There's a division of power. As a social studies teacher, you know all about checks and balances, division of power, and all. So that's, you know, that's the baloney. I asked Ms. Thompson if she could seek the opinion of some lawyer, and she did say that she did talk to someone in the state, and I just could you pretty much tell the rest of the board what you told me, okay? Because I do admit I'm not a lawyer, okay?
You have the floor, Ms.
Thank you. You posed the question directly whether we had contacted not only someone for a legal opinion, but also whether we'd spoken with the state. In fact, we did have a conversation with the chief lawyer representing the state Department of Education, who advised us that there is no regulation that permits or allows the city council to undertake this kind of action. There have also been quite a few legal opinions rendered, particularly with regard to what the city council is allowed to do with respect to budget allocation once it's been made, and that the law is fairly clear now that once the allocation has been made, that the city council cannot then come back and explain how it is or dictate how it is that that money should be spent. So we did actually make some phone calls in an effort to find out in a very cost-effective way what sort of backing there would be for the board on this matter. And I think it's pretty clear that the board's got full discretion to spend the money that's been appropriated in the manner that it sees fit.
Okay, the other question was there, I think we asked, was there any precedent that what the city council mayor is doing throughout the state that,
right.
You know, this is a first?
We were told that this, in fact, was their first experience with it, this sort of a take-back of the previously appropriated funds.
Okay, I'd just like to make one other point. I also know, and I think we have one or two words on this, we do understand 35,000 in court cases is a no-winner for anybody. With that we understand, but it's a question here of, you know, just what our responsibility is, where the line is, and what the city's responsibility is. That's what I'm worried about. And I'll be honest with you, if I had the money like some of our other politicians have, I would fund it myself, but I don't. The court case, I don't.
Me neither.
Okay, no, okay, yeah.
Ms. Molinaro.
First of all, let me see if I can say this. Mr. Mayor, I'm so glad that you're here tonight for this conversation. And I want you to know that this board never took it lightly spending a taxpayer dollar. Never took it lightly. would challenge your group to save as much money as this group has over the past 2 years. If you could reward them with a 2.5% increase or a 1.5% increase in their salary, let's see what they come up with cost savings, because our group did that. Our group came up with cost savings. And I understand that perception is reality in this world, and I know that you have to go before your unions and say, you can't have the money. And they'll say, well, how come the board got the money? Well, the entire board did not get the money. The few got the money that saved us. How much was it, Irving? 2 million?
We're down $1 million.
$1 million.
From last year. From the last 2 years, we're down about $1 million in those 5
And
months.
perhaps if we did it by percentages, you know, if your groups can save the percentage that this group did, maybe it would be cost effective and you could get the raises.
Well, we could, yeah, but you don't want to go there because the money isn't, you just don't want to go there because we've saved proportionally many more. I have 40 unfilled positions right now in my organization. So that's not an analysis that you really want to do, proportionally speaking. I saved $1.6 million on one bond issuance by refinancing the whole bond. But you know what? I didn't take the money and give it to my administrators. I gave it back to the taxpayers where it belongs. This is a time when we have 10% unemployment rate. We have people losing their homes out there. We don't have the moral authority to go out and give raises while people out there are unemployed. And as far as I understand, and I've read the rationales for why, for example, the merging of the legal services along with the HR director, and it's a solid move, but it's not going to save you any money because unless you can show me this entire year, you're never going to call Tom Mooney or have him participate in any negotiations, because that's not going to happen. You're going to call Tom Mooney. You already did by Bob's admittance. So the minute you call those guys, we all know that the clock starts ticking and it's $200 an hour. So having said, and there will be cost savings already later down the line because in the year 3 and 4 and 5, once there's an institutional memory and knowledge of all the contracts that have been negotiated, then you don't need Tom Mooney to come in and interpret the contract that's been done. But your initial savings won't be nearly what you thought it was. And that's, if you're making that decision long-term wise, that's fine. But this is more about message than even it's about the money. What message do we send to that family that's going into foreclosure and we found time to give raises to administrators that make a significant amount of money? What message do we send? That's all.
Mr. Sarah,
just for the first time. First, being on both sides of the aisle, both sides being on the school board and the common council. The council cannot, and the mayor's already admitted can't tell us what to spend or where to spend, but they can cost the money. And if I was on their side, and for some reason they can't cut it, I'd cut you next year, and then probably even more if I was a council person. I voted for this particular pay raise, and I told you that I probably have to take the heat for some of this, and I will. But what you're threatening is, and when Mr. Tavrisek says, call Tom Mooney. First, Mr. Tavrisek you can't request for anybody to call Tom Mooney. You can answer me after. Only the chairman and the board superintendent to call Tom Mooney. But if I see anybody, I will put a complaint in calling Tom Mooney or anybody else to spend money. Just want to let you know that. So, we'll go from there. But I have to back it because the board backed it. But I can understand where the mayor is coming from to miss no money.
How do you ask your teachers next year to take zeros? Do you think that's going to fly?
No, and I don't think we're doing it. It's going to be
Because you
tough.
gave everybody a raise. So what's going to happen is teachers are going to say, no, the superintendent, no disrespect to Sal or anybody else, they got a raise. I want a raise too. Now you're $30,000. Bob is $2 million, and that's the problem.
Mark, we went into arbitration, didn't we, with the administrators. We ended up losing money.
15 grand.
We ended up losing money. We cut them, we denied them. They go and they got what they wanted, plus we had to pay an arbitrator. I don't know what to tell you. Unless the arbitrator is under some other kind of law.
On a discretionary thing, I'd rather the state tell us that we have to pay folks and be on the side of trying to protect the taxpayers and protect their home than to arbitrarily give out raises when we have the choice now.
Anyone else who hasn't spoken?
I'd just like to clarify
Mr.
something
Townsend.
with Mr. Scott's father. Okay,
Mr.
question was, I asked if we could.
You
Okay?
can't,
Because I don't know. And our resource person
and I
said,
hope she didn't.
no, I asked her, I said, because, you know, the legal thing, I brought this up before, you know that, right? Okay, no, with the money and so forth, this has been brought up. So I asked her, and what Kim told me was that she talked to the state, the person, right, in the state lawyer, I think that's what she told me, okay? But to be honest, there was no, you know, didn't know. I said, can we get a legal opinion? Okay, and pretty much what we heard about the state attorney. And like I'm saying, to me, the big issue is, I feel it's not really legal, what, the withholding of the appropriation, but that would have to be decided in the court. And nobody wants to do that because, again, it costs so much money to go through a legal process.
Mr. Chairman.
But I still think that
Mr.
the
Chairman,
nut problem is where, you know, where the line is.
We cannot go to court over this one. That's just plain stupid. Just plain absolutely stupid.
That's why.
And if I was on the county council and they lost, next year I'd whack them more. In fact, I would go for it. I'll be on the school board next year, and I'll tell you, I'll vote no further. Maybe I won't have 6 votes, but I'll tell you, I'll be the biggest pain you've ever seen. And I'll also tell you that I'll have more people out there, and I do respect the taxpayers. They're the ones that pay our freight.
But we are taxpayers.
Yeah, so am I. But you want to pay my $500 I just paid extra this year? You can, and I'm gonna let that shut up. $500 more this year I paid. You want to pay more? I'm not.
If it's for a good cause, I
Good.
don't pay
You can pay mine.
taxes.
Any further discussion?
I think we covered it pretty much, Mr. Chairman. If I could just add one more thing. I just want to kind of explain the underpinning, because you're the attorney you consulted may not be aware of what the underpinning is. Without beating a dead horse, when the council feels that when they asked Dr. Pasquarello, in other words, let me take a step back. When Dr. Pasquarello submitted the board's budget for February, the raises were clearly delineated. The council's under the assumption, obviously, that, you know, assuming that if you didn't get 4.2 million, that the first thing you would cut would be raises for administrators, discretionary, they're right there, it's an easy, low-hanging fruit for you. So when they went to the committee, the council asked Dr. Pasquarello, are you giving raises to your administrators? And his response was, I don't know, we'll have to see. Or words to that effect. So their feeling is, given a chance to re-vote on the appropriation, they'll amend their appropriation because they weren't given all the information that they felt was necessary. Just so we understand what the legal opinion is there. And we've done all of our legal research on this, whatever. Having said that, I think 2 things can happen. One, I think Mr. Skoczafov is right. Probably it's silly to go to court and fight over $35,000 or $30,000.
Nobody's saying that.
No, I'm just saying. So, but 2, we're going to have a serious problem from the city council getting another nickel out of them next year. That's done. We got 21 people vote on this on Thursday night. I don't see anybody voting for it. You know, voting for reinstating the dollars. So we're going to have discussions from now till next year about how are we going to craft our next year's appropriation. We're going to have to talk about negotiations so that what we're offering on our side of the budget is similar to what you're offering, because people will use as a wedge what teachers got or what paraprofessionals got or whoever got on our side of the budget. And if we're going to control these costs, and they're explosive, of your $4.2 million last year, and Ilya's got here, $2 million were for raises. And the teacher side of the budget, not even for the administrators. So they're explosive. If we don't control these, you're going to have Dr. Pasquarello and myself and maybe Ilya here to turn out the lights when it's all done. Because we have to lay everybody off. That's not something I created. Every city and town in this state is dealing with this across the country. So either we own it and understand this is a new economic era and the old rules don't apply. And yes, this is unprecedented. You're right. And you're going to see other cities and towns do this across the state and across the country. Because it's unsustainable to pass. So my suggestion is going forward, somehow we got to get together earlier on and start crafting these budgets so that they marry up. Try to get our level of benefit, particularly healthcare, on the same playing field for everybody, because there's value in the economies of scale. So that's just a thought for them.
Further discussion.
Yeah.
Dr. Pasquale?
It's really difficult for me because I'm part of this. I know that, but this doesn't help those youngsters that left here this evening at this discussion between us. Clearly, there's been a lot of strife throughout Connecticut with municipalities, recalls, and what have you. There was a message to be sent. We sent the message for the kind of work we thought was going on, and we rewarded it. We got a message back as to how that was received and internalized. I think, Bob, clearly there's a technicality, and technicalities make rich lawyers. And for us to be adversarial with the town, I think the town at this time is not in the best interest of our kids. So for me, if the city comes forward with us, they need to do what they need to do, we need to do what we need to do. But going forward, I am worrying strategically where we are next year. And if working together, as the mayor just indicated, needs to happen, I advise us to do that and do it quickly so that we can begin our strategy and move forward. The decision to go to a lawyer or not is one for the board, but I don't see where it adds value to what we do here, relationship-wise, school-wide, reputation-wise, or just playing the business of trying to run the schools, which, as you all know, is difficult enough, and running the town, I realize that. So that would be my 2 cents.
Mr. Tepper?
I just would like to, again, clarify something. I was not advocating going to a formal law thing. I just was trying to bring the issue out in the open and to the public. I said no one wins, and no one wants to go to it. But the thing is, if you feel something is wrong, you should point it out. If you feel that maybe I'm wrong, well, it's been pointed out also. Okay? But the point was, there was no one saying that we should force this. If that's what you thought I said, that isn't what I meant to say. Okay?
Mr. Chairman.
Mrs. Pasquale?
I was in favor of the raises, and I have to stay there because I don't back off of the vote when I make it, I stick to what I say. And if the council does practice, and I think they will, and I think that they can't tell us what to do, I already know that. I mean, we didn't have to get an opinion about that, that's law. But we have to find it somewhere else, and next year, we're going to have to think twice about giving anybody any raises. We're going to have to go to arbitration and let the ball forward. I think the mayor, Mark, I think you're probably going to have to do the same. I don't want 20 years. I think this is the way it's going to be. I don't think you're wrong or anything.
Well, we're offering the fact that you can keep your job and you have
Thank
health
you, I
insurance.
appreciate it.
You can walk into work. Mr. Chairman, I might just want to say, just to kind of reiterate what Sal and Dr. Pasquale was saying. Let's make no mistake. Dr. Pasquale, Ilio, myself, David St. Hilaire, we can't sleep at night thinking about what's coming in the next couple of years. This is just at the very beginning of a long haul in terms of this economy and getting back on our feet, and in terms of revenue to the city. And I think sometimes it might benefit us communicating a little bit about just some of the challenges that we're facing on our side, and revenue collection, stuff that you may never even know that even goes on. So you can understand, sort of the view I have. It's a great book out there called Lions, Tigers, and Bears. And sometimes you got to have the lion's view of the whole complete city to understand the services you have to deliver, how you have to pay for them, and where the money comes from in order to be a really good tiger. So you guys are the tigers. It's a really bad analogy. I think it's the gentleman's right. But my point being that, we've got to figure stuff out going forward. And I think negotiations are a good opportunity to do that, particularly our healthcare plan. If we could get police, fire, teachers all in the same healthcare plan instead of having 3 separate plans, there's a tremendous value in putting that into bid. So there's opportunities where we can work together. IT bill, I'm sorry and happy for you that you're taking that over, but if there's value in us working together in the IT departments, then we should explore that, because we are reorganizing our IT department right now. So there's just some opportunities as we go forward.
Mr. Tepper?
We are involved, in negotiations, and probably arbitration is going to be, the result. That looks like it's almost automatic, given everything. We could really use Mr. St. Hilaire doing what you did, bringing the city's position when arbitration comes up, which almost certainly it will. point or another. That would be one way that the city could help us, because really you have the facts when it comes to the taxes and what's coming in and so forth. Okay, so, it's a two-way street. Also, what's been very good, I think, with the negotiations, Mayor Tycho, there's been a liaison just about at every meeting. This has been an improvement since when I first started. And so, I think there's a certain working together that's been happening. No one's saying it's easy.
And these times it's not, but, and I do want it to be clear, it's not a reflection of everybody's performance. Sal and I talk probably 2 or 3 times a day sometimes, and so it's not like we're not communicating everything. So.
And I would agree, it's, the mayor said it earlier, we have to kind of work together earlier. I think communication is the key to make sure that we're all on the same page. What the city's what the condition of the city's finances are, what the needs of the system are, and vice versa.
And the state's counting us. Of course, if I get to be lieutenant governor, you'll have more money in Las Vegas.
It's nice.
I'm going to bet on that.
You can bet on it.
Legislative body. I just wanted to say that I was against, I voted against the raises, and I stand by that decision, but I wanted to say, I agree with Dr. Pascarella. I think it's just time to move on, accept the common council's decision, and just let's work on moving forward to see if we can build a better relationship so that the next budget season comes in, work with them and make sure that we have the money we need, the money that we need to give these kids a quality education and take care of them. And I also want to say, Dr. Glass, you know how I feel about you. I want to thank you for taking on the IT responsibilities. I think you're crazier than ever for doing it. And I don't think anybody in this town appreciates or can appreciate all the work that you do tirelessly on behalf of the kids and how much you love these kids as if they were your very own. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
I just
Small
have
hand.
one comment, to wish you luck
Thanks,
on your
Ken.
upcoming,
Appreciate it.
whatever. Anyway, I think the reason we lose an arbitration, maybe you've just done too fine a job in there, because the arbitrators think that we are able to pay. So thanks for that one.
Seeing no further discussion, I'd like to thank the mayor for attending this evening. I think the discussion was very beneficial for all of us, and we should continue the dialogue going forward. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, Mr. Chairman. We do have a request to get the 2020 task force up and running again. So Dr. Pascarella and I will be working closely on that as we move closer to breaking ground on many movements. So just want to, yeah. Thank you.